So for drawing 2 and 3, your basic task is to experiment with some materials that are new to you. One of the things you can do, so if you haven't been able to buy a whole lot of new materials, you don't have anything just laying around, is to take something that's familiar and try to use it in a different way. So that might be pretty hard with a pencil, but try holding it differently. You could draw, maybe like this. That's not a very normal or natural way to do it. Or you could hold it at the tip and try to do gestures like that. So try one kind of familiar material and draw with that. If you haven't used Vine charcoal, so I get a lot of people in drawing 2 and 3 that haven't used Vine charcoal before. That's okay. If it's new to you, you can use Vine charcoal for some gestures. Just let me know that that's what's going on. Haven't used Vine charcoal before. This is new to me. So you can give it a try. Or even like your compressed charcoal stick or something like that. The more experience you have drawing, the harder it is to find stuff that's new. But, they make new things all the time. So I have these metallic pens that I have never done gesture drawing with before. I have some water-soluble crayons that I've never done gesture before. I reserved a Sharpie for the drawing 3, which is to use a different kind of paper, because I think we're going to need something like a Sharpie to draw on it. I'm just not sure yet. And then I've got this little weird thing. I'm going to use this first. I'm trying to even remember what it is. It is, I think, you kind of see it. It's kind of got a little bit of like a graphite color to it, kind of grayish, with color in it. I think it's like those Graphitin pencils, but in a block. I bought it a long time ago. I never used it. I found it, and I'm like, what the heck is this thing? So I do remember that you use it with a brush and water, and so I've got this all ready to go. And the key to your drawing, so draw for the entire time, depending on your materials and what you're looking at. You might be looking at gestures where you can spend 5 minutes on it, or you might be looking at gestures where you're 30 seconds and you're done. So if you've never done gesture drawings, you're gonna have to look at the videos for drawing 1, just to kind of figure out what a gesture drawing is. And then take your new materials and looking for the most general shapes, the broadest marks, see what you can get, So I'm working with this brush, which is sort of loose anyway, and I don't know, it's fun. It's not gonna get a whole lot of, it's not super dark. It doesn't have, a big variation in value. Kind of is what it is when you put it on the paper. It's that color. But I can make lines with it, and I can do, it sort of works really well for sort of a scribbly kind of approach. And I could do gestures using this to kind of just quickly sort of get a feel for how it works. Okay. So I could do some gestures with a Sharpie, if I've never used a Sharpie. I have these metallic pens that I've used as an accent with my watercolor, but I've never done gestures with these. So you're still going to want to do line gestures and shape gestures. So quick review on that. I'll look at my bowl. So line gesture would be where you're mostly looking for a line. What are the directions? What are the paths that your eye follows? It might be going around the outside edges of objects, in which case it turns into a shape. But you're thinking mostly line and direction. What is the lines and directions that you're seeing in your object? And then for shape, what are the biggest shapes that you see? So focus and concentrate on seeing the shapes first. You're going to want a fairly complex subject, possibly. If you get somebody to pose for you, drawing a person really quickly is definitely a challenge, and it's fun. When I teach this class in person and we do gestures, we actually draw each other. So it's appropriate for all levels, beginner, intermediate, advanced. You know, it's not something that you have to wait for when you take life drawing. So I'm mostly looking for shape in this one. This would be line. This would be, I'm looking more for shapes. And then you can do some where you are looking for line and shape. So like around the outside edge of the bowl, that's a clear line. This looks more like a shape to me. It's like it's a dried up gourd. Then this is like the base or the body of there's a devil's claw in that little bowl. This is a piece of wood in the background. But then line, you know, the long swoopy pointy ends for the devil claw. They sort of have these lines that lead my eye back and forth. You can fit anywhere from 1 to 5 gestures on a page, and you're working big enough. If you can fit more than that, then you're probably working too small. There's not much difference between just line, just shape, and the two together. It's more about what you are thinking about as you draw, what you are looking for. Are you looking mostly for line and direction, or are you looking for both line and shape? Now for drawing 3, what you want to do is you want to use different paper. So I'm going to start with the parchment paper first. I rummaged around my house. I have all different kinds of like art paper for cheap stuff to like really expensive watercolor paper. If you can afford to buy a couple of 2-3 sheets of paper at the art store, awesome. You can try some new papers, and gestures are a good way to kind of get a feel for what the paper feels like and the surface of it. It can kind of feel like a waste because you're not making a nice drawing, and this stuff is not sticky at all. It's not meant to be. This is parchment paper. It's the stuff that you put underneath stuff when you're baking so it doesn't stick to the pan. So of course the paper itself is not sticky. That makes a whole lot of sense. I'm guessing I'm going to need something like a Sharpie to write on this, but I don't know. I mean, I could try. I'm going to pull out Vine Charcoal and try that. So if you're in drawing 3, your task is to try new paper. You want to try at least one new drawing material. So a new marker, a new pen, something that you use with a brush, something you haven't used before, and then at least a couple of different surfaces of paper. Oh, it actually looks pretty nice. So this is the Vine Charcoal, and it has, this parchment paper has kind of an unexpected, like a little bit of like a rough texture to it. I was expecting it to be very smooth and to not have any kind of prominent visual texture at all, but it actually does. It's kind of cool. I don't know if I'll ever do a more finished drawing on it, but that's good to know. And Vine Charcoal does work. And then I could try a different material. So I was thinking Sharpie would be better, but the Sharpie is actually kind of lifting and not really staying put on the parchment paper. So, you know, you're exploring and you're experimenting with these. You're trying to figure out what's going to work. Okay, so this was Vine, and this was Sharpie. So I could take the same 2 drawing materials, the Vine Charcoal and the Sharpie, and try it on a different kind of paper. So this paper is from back in the day when you had to, like, you know, type out your resume and or print it out on physical paper and give it to people. And this is like, it's like parchment paper to do documents and stuff on, to make it look all pretty and fancy. And it's been sitting on my shelf for probably 20 years. It's at least that long since I've printed anything out like that. So I could try the two. I mean, it's a little smaller, so I could do one per page. That's probably what I would be comfortable with, is one per page, because I like to work big. Maybe two. So if you're working on a smaller paper, you know, try to get more of that paper so that you don't have to work like really cramped and crowded. And this has a really nice, you know, I could definitely use this as a finished drawing. It is nice paper. You know, it's archival and acid free and would last forever. I mean, it's been sitting on my shelf for 20 years and hasn't changed one bit. It's got this really nice, this sort of grid thing is called a laid texture. It's got a nice laid texture. It's actually really nice to draw with. So maybe you'll get lucky and you'll find something in this gesture assignment that is a new surface that you really like. And then with your other so I find that pens tend to work better as more like a scribble kind of gesture. For more information about scribble gestures, you're going to want to watch the video for the scribble gesture. It works pretty nice for the Sharpie too. And that's it.